Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Live with Lava Sub. I'm Lava Sub. You can call me Weston. It's a far more appropriate name that is actually not a word salad. So there's that. But welcome. We took a break last week, necessary break, but we're back on the 4th. I guess I should get out of the way that I'm probably going to pop off in this episode, so if you're a teeny bopper child or a absolute baby-brained goofball, then I recommend not being here for this one, because I'm probably going to say some stuff that will make people upset, because it is the 4th of July, and the 4th of July is a nationally recognized American holiday. In case you didn't know, that there is a certain unambiguous support within the United States, but for a very, from what I can tell, pretty minor portion of the population who, because of their disillusionment with the United States, as well as the history of the holiday and how it's been used, have much different feelings on than maybe the majority of them. We're also going to do some art. I've got my paper pad out. I've got a bunch of my pastel chalk in front of me. I've got a 1.5 million tabs open on my lappy over here. I'm going to use to bring up some topics. And we're just going to chill. We're going to do some art. I'm going to talk some shit. I hope you have a good time. Let's get into it. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was last stream we did. We had a short conversation about Ocean Gate and the submarine. At that point, we didn't know what had happened. I made some assumptions about what happened. I did not think they were going to make it. And turns out I was wrong in a way that was because they were already probably dead by the time we were talking about them. Tragic, in a way that I feel bad because, all life has value and everyone is worth the possibility of rehabilitation. But at the same time, that company was fucking bonkers, and all the stuff that's come out, like, before and since, about that company, about the way it was run, about the release of a lot of the communications, the inner communication in the company, is incredibly damning. I feel bad for the people, even the passengers, even more because they were duped, but I feel slightly more balanced about that sadness because they were all intensely wealthy, but for the young kid who got dragged along by his dad or stepdad or whatever it was. Either way, it wasn't a crazy ticket price. Like $120K is a lot of fucking money, especially to anybody listening right now. But to the upper economic echelons of our society, that's nothing. I mean, Kim Kardashian could go. I guess she is like a billionaire though. That or one of her sisters, I can't remember which. And frankly, it doesn't matter. They were wealthy when they started, they're going to be wealthy the rest of their lives. That tends to be how things go. Upward mobility is possible when you're already at the top of the game. Ocean Gate. We do, yeah. I think it is worth bringing up just how silly it is that no matter how much footage is shot of the Titanic, no matter how many times James Cameron has gone to the Titanic, done all this expedition that a lot of it he funded, frankly, so I can't really be too mad about it. There's still this persistent urge for the extremely wealthy to revisit the place where a bunch of their the people on an equal economic playing field as them from the time would have died, or actually most of them didn't, because all of the poor people mostly were the people who died, the people working on the ship, and people who paid far less and were able to leverage their economic and social capitals to make lifeboats exclusively for wealth, which happened. Yeah, no, I found that out recently. That was depressing, but I always knew the Titanic was a fucked situation. And in a similar way, so is the situation with the Titan sub. And so my empathy is a little bit reduced for those people. But I thought that was funny, especially when I heard about the new A-Lift, I believe is how you pronounce it, flying car, that has been approved by FAA. So it is the first FAA-approved flying car. There's a certain part of me that, like most people my age, and older, probably some younger, most people have seen the Jetsons, or, I don't know, Star Wars, Jupiter Ascending, whatever your fantasy show that had flying cars in it. You've seen it, and you're like, I want to have a flying car. That sounds absolutely fucking tits, boss. I feel that too. I have always wanted flying cars. I think about the potential of flying cars and how, how much better it could be at preventing a lot of the frustrations that most people living in modern society have to face with incredible traffic, etc. I can see the potential there, but I'm also not a child, and can see how personal, individual transportation methods and the innovations in that field are kind of more depressing than I want them to be. Because we're getting our fucking cheeks absolutely clapped every day by virtually every other nation on the planet, in as far as their public transportation is concerned. Our public transportation system is like not even equivalent to 100 years ago in most countries. It's atrocious. And it's depressing to think about, especially considering how much a lot of public transportation would clear up a lot of the same problems we think of as flying cars would be a solve for, like traffic and pollution, as well as being a flying car that would help you reduce your commute time, essentially. This is also a 100% electric vehicle. And this sounds pretty cool. On its face, it's like got a pretty sleek design. It's got all these kind of cutaways into the car that obviously are to promote airflow, which, especially in this design, is massively needed because it's actually not like a wing kind of flying car. It is basically, turns out, a quadcopter on a strange oblong frame. So it's like, a drone, basically. It also, you start realizing that if it's basically just got these four crops, all of them need to be functioning 100%, or there's going to be major conflicts with the way this thing is able to take off and land. Not to mention the fact that there is so little space in it. I have not figured out, I have not been in any of the articles seen what material this is made of. I'm assuming it's carbon fiber, but especially if that is the case, this thing is, you're not going to just take it to a body shop and wreck it. It's toast if you wreck this thing. I feel like if you scrape a curb, you're going to have major repairs to this thing because it's flying. It's depending on a much more intense kind of aerodynamics than a typical just on the road vehicle. So I think that's worth mentioning. It's also the one other thing that really caught me when I started reading up about this wasn't that it's just, this fairly light, fairly destructible body on a quadcopter. It's also designed so that it takes off vertically and is supposed to be able to just fly right over whatever congestion that you're met with. On its face, with that explanation, it doesn't sound so bad, but when you find out that this thing has to turn like 90 degrees to reach its full flight potential, and then you find out that not only does the car need to turn 90 degrees, but the cockpit, the two-person shell that essentially the rest of the body is built around, rotates after or as you take off, so that suddenly you go from driving, hot dog style, like a normal car, to flying hamburger style. Your cockpit, your driver's seat, essentially rotating 90 degrees to match the rotation of the vehicle that needs that rotation to fly properly, especially with this body attached, so that the body is then acting almost like wings. So, for this car to drive properly, you have to, that takeoff and landing is kind of insane to think about. Like, even if you put it in the best conditions, a great driver and somebody who's incredibly safe and knows what they're doing and has operated this vehicle in other flying machines, other, best case scenario, there's still a lot that just can go wrong mechanically just in takeoff and landing. And they're already working on a 4-passenger model. They have the 2-passenger, that's the one that was just approved, but they're working on a 4-passenger, implying that you're going to take your kids in this thing, which to me, fuck, you're not. No rational, kind, sane person is going to do that, or should do that. But then again, this is America. Very little surprises left for me for the kinds of shit people are willing to do. The kinds of danger they're willing to put their children in just because of some kind of misplaced, arrogant streak that runs so deep in so much of our culture. We've got it's also $300,000 just off just the car. $300K. That's not including any licensing, insurance, registration, any other kind of paperwork that you're going to have to file to fly and drive this. This isn't new. I think it's worth saying that even as recently as last year, there was another flying car model. It was 2021 as well. The last 3 years, we've seen 3 different flying car models that all got spots in major publications dedicated to talking about the potential for flying cars, yada yada, individual personal transportation against public transportation, Elon Musk propping up Aleph. He's a funder to their cause, their endeavor. This doesn't make me think this is happening any more than it did the last 100 times in my lifetime I've heard they're going to do this. It's, I think, worth it for a lot of people to put a lot of money into a project like this, sell a few of the cars, which they almost guaranteed are going to do, but not having the infrastructure or any of the licensing or any of that stuff really worked out, it's going to be hard for them to actually take off commercially. We're a long way off from seeing a flying Camry in your neighbor's yard. You know what I mean? That's not even being proposed at this point. Like that's one of the other things that freaks me out about this, is that none of the major aeronautics or vehicle manufacturing companies anywhere else on the planet have like a base model that they're trying to get off the ground as well. In 2018, Audi had a flying vehicle concept car that they brought to a car show. But that's the most recent example of a major company getting in. Also, 300K, like we were saying, for some people, especially in America, 300K isn't like a ton of money. It's still a lot of money, but it's not like it's 2 trips to the Titanic with Ocean Gate. So it's not crazy for people who make millions and millions of dollars a year or are billionaires, and their wealth will logically never decrease no matter how hard they try in any meaningful capacity anyway. Yeah, but it is the same price as like a Bentley. You know, one of the nicest vehicles that human hands ever built. Incredibly luxurious vehicle with all of the trimmings. You can buy that. Okay. And instead, you're getting a death trap. I mean, it's not controversial to say that this thing looks like it will kill you. I don't think the company making it that it's a controversial statement, but I'm just calling them as I see them, and I don't know how you can get mad at me for that. While I was having that long rant, the other point I was going to bring up about this before. Yeah, it is pretty concerning, just like it's nothing more than my conjecture to say that, you know, this is just warming us up for the eventuality of more and more flying personal transportation that effectively only a certain subsect of our population are ever going to be able to afford, so they can skip the parts of interstate travel that makes them have to be on an equal plane as the poors. But I do think that it's not too far off to say that most rich people don't look at poors like they're even human beings. I don't think anyone can really argue against that. They're pretty open about this fact. So, don't talk to me about it. Just look at how most city governments treat homeless populations. Oh, another cool thing. I didn't even make this a note, but I was just remembering because I mentioned, because of what I was just talking about. Oh, goddamn. I forgot the publication. I think it was SF Time. Recently had one of their writing staff put out an article about Bethel, the cult that I talk about so often on this program. Really cool. Shout out to the writer. Let me just pull it up real quick, because I want to give them credit, because I think it was their last job for the paper. They're like retiring or some shit. SF8. was the publication. The writer is Eric King. Yes, this is actually a really great article. It isn't necessarily as condemning. They don't call Bethel cult, which I think it's within their rights to. But they do talk to a lot of people that I think really were able to shed some very specific light on. No one I know personally, but I know people who the anecdotal, personal, like testimonial portion of that article talked about a lot of stories that were like, I don't know this specific person, but I've heard this story because Bethel's abuse of not only their congregation but the rest are getting so widespread and common that things like exercising teenage girls out of being lesbians when they're straight to begin with, just on an assumption, is something that is not an uncommon thing for Bethel to try and do, because demons are what make us gay. And I would agree with that statement. I am a nasty little demon, but not in the same way that these fucking far-right, fascist, cultists, not in the way that they do. But yeah, really great article. It's called How a Miracle-Obsessed Megachurch Conquered a California City. And I think that framing is actually really solid. It really tells you how they conquered this small town, my hometown. And they talk about how Bethel owns so much of the real estate in the city, how much they've paid to the police programs. They go into the details of how conquered Reading feels by this megachurch. And it actually, really interesting segue because I've been watching the new season of Righteous Gemstones, which, if you haven't seen it, it's a really, really wonderful show. And kind of like, it always makes me, especially this season, really bringing me back to those feelings I had growing up with this mega church kind of looming over town. Just this like awareness that the things that they do have nothing to do with, religion or God or Jesus or any of that shit. None of it has anything to do with an actual faith or belief, other than a faith and belief in conquering colonialism, and in this case, like the consolidation of wealth in very few hands that is, in a short period of time, able to essentially make resources for all people other than their congregation much less accessible, and even for their congregation, any help they get comes with caveat upon compromise. I think, Righteous Gemstones, especially this season, all of it's been really great, but the way that I think this might be the best season of it yet. A lot of really interesting casting choices and cameos in this latest season. But actually, I think it's really interesting because I also was going to talk about I'm a Virgo, which, if you haven't seen it, is Boots Riley's new show. Boots is an incredibly talented artist, musician, filmmaker out of Oakland, California. I had peripheral kind of acquaintance. That's too much. Ultimately, I knew people who worked on a couple of his projects. I worked a couple of times with the production crew, Eat the Fish, helped Boots' old band do one of their music videos. They do puppetry and all kinds of this. Actually, go check out Eat the Fish. They recently lost one of their like oldest friends and one of the members of their production company, a very sweet dude named Isaac, and I know that the people there would really appreciate anyone going to check out their work. They do really lovely stuff, and it's definitely for a more adult audience, but they've got great sense of humor and put together some really great work. So, rest in power, Isaac, and I hope everyone at Eat the Fish is doing well, and just loving that Boots is absolutely crushing right. I sure am. I mean, anyone who saw Sorry to Bother You definitely knows there's something unique about the voice telling that story. There is something that I would argue is desperately needed within our media in Sorry to Bother You. And I'm a Virgo is no different. It's funny. I don't want to get too off track, but I keep, in my head, I keep saying, but I'm a Virgo, like, but I'm a cheerleader, which, if any of you are familiar, is one of the absolute classic queer movies about, it's Cleta Ball and Natasha Lyonne, and it's a great cast, great story. If you're here, you'll probably like it. I'm going to put it that way. Interesting. But I'm a Virgo I was segueing because Walton Goggins, who is plays Uncle Baby Billy in Righteous Gemstones, plays the hero in I'm a Virgo. And everything that guy is doing right now is kind of just impresses me more and more. The more I see of his work, the more I see his range and the incredible passion he has for the craft, kind of more and more clearly. I mean, he's been working for a really long time. He's done a lot of really interesting work, but it's no more clear than it has become more recently with things like I'm a Virgo, Righteous Gemstones. I'm trying to remember something else I saw from him fairly recently where it was just like, this is a totally different person. He just brings that to every role where he's just, there's not many like I can't find it, but super talented dude, and just incredible performances all around from the cast of I'm a Virgo. Just a really impressive story that required some very, very specific high-end kind of performance and just ability to relay some very high-concept ideas in these characters, and not one of them disappoints. Just intensely talented people, from the lead Cootie, played by Jarl Perone, to just comedic legend Mike Epps playing Cootie's dad. All these younger actors who I haven't seen in a lot of stuff yet playing in the main cast, but all of these really interesting ensemble cameo choices, like Oakland comedian Moshe Kasher makes a cameo, Elijah Wood makes a cameo, Juliette Lewis makes a cameo. Just a lot of really talented, very interesting people that makes me want to fuck with them even harder because they're choosing to do this project. I'm a Virgo, and because of its the political discourse it's intended to create, the kind of propagandistic nature of Boots' work generally, how he kind of leans into that unabashedly. It's just, I mean, it's so impressive to me, but it's definitely got to be a deterrent for a lot of people who want, you know, a safe career where they're just going to be able to feed themselves and have a roof over their head, as especially younger actors. So just really great to see a lot of legends come out to support by agreeing to be in it. You know, especially I think it's interesting because there's so much overlap in a lot of the casting of shows I've been watching lately. And while mostly I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that because it means there's less people getting work and that work is more concentrated in fewer hands. And I don't think that's necessarily good for the art form in a general way. I think that it hurts a lot of people's I think it can be potentially disastrous for the careers of the overall majority rather than the select few. And that's, you know, a systemic issue that most individual people are not responsible for, so it's no point blaming them. But it is, I would prefer to see people like there are in the main cast, and all of these people who don't have a lot of credits to their name on their IMDb's, but give really, really incredible performances in I'm a Virgo. That's something that Boots did, cast a lot of people who aren't necessarily like in the next Marvel movie or whatever in these very major roles, so that hopefully they have the ability to keep climbing, essentially, to make careers that are going to be bright and as fulfilling as they should be for these guys. I love them. I feel like I started one way. I started talking about one thing and mid-sentence went on to a completely different conclusion. That's okay. I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, I was talking about, well, I know I was talking about tying in different cameos, or tying in different characters, different shows, different actors, different shows. Like I just mentioned Juliette Lewis and Elijah Wood, who are also currently in Yellow Jackets, which, I mean, another really amazing show. Not necessarily, I guess what I'm trying to say is it does something very effectively in that it is able to communicate some very complicated ideas about trauma and emotional damage and how people deal with that in different ways in this show very, very well, while not necessarily like, while still walking the horror to dark comedy kind of that fine line. Like, they're not in one either, one or the other. They're kind of both. It is terrifying and it is horrifying, but it is also occasionally very, very, very fun, especially in a situation like the way that people end up places. But I think that, especially when it comes to trauma, dealing with trauma, I think that's humor is one of the most common ways to deal with it, which is, you know, a kind of meta-analysis of the story and everything, but it is something that I can appreciate in Yellow Jackets. It's a fantastic show. I hate to be just hyping up a bunch of mega corporations in their media, but there's a lot of really great stuff around here. So, you know what we will do is we'll talk some shit about Disney. Oh my god. Have you heard? Secret Invasion, one of the first big media company productions to feature generative artificial intelligence art within their opening. So oftentimes what will happen is artists will create opening title images, whether or not they're a graphic designer or an artist like, you know, Jim Lee or some shit. Oftentimes people are brought in to do a lot of individual labor to make sure that those opening titles, opening credits, the visuals are stimulating and fun to look at and draw you into the story and tell you a little bit about each individual or the general overarching ideas of the story. What a synopsis of what you're about to see that you can feel within the images, whether or not it's like right there in front of you, obvious and clear as day, or whether it's a little bit more subtle. But Disney, Disney, decided for their next big show, Secret Invasion, which I read the comics when I was collecting when they first came out, so I have a bunch of those issues. I thought it was kind of mid when it came out, and just trying to retread the same ground that Civil War had just tread on. In hindsight, I think it's probably better than Civil War, but Civil War was just culturally like a phenomenon for a few years when it first came out. Yeah, Secret War, the TV show, centering on Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson, is a much different take on the concept that originally we were introduced to in the comic book. And that's fine. I think, honestly, I didn't know what I was getting into. I just know that Marvel isn't necessarily taking any cues from the comics at this point. They're doing their own thing in the movies. And I think that actually makes them watchable for me, because at first that's all I could do was compare them to the comics. And I'm like, comics are better. There's just no argument. I don't know how you can make an argument. The comics are worse than these fucking shit movies. But now they're just fun, shitty movies that, you can kind of just popcorn your way through. But it was hard to do that with this one, especially because of all of the controversy that arose because of their using AR in their titles. And in fact, actually, maybe is still an important topic, especially I've talked about AI who knows how many times on this program before. It's something that pisses me off to no end. It's theft, effectively. It is a frustrating aspect of being a working artist in any medium in today's world, is that you are, media corporations, media conglomerates around the world are trying to replace a lot of their artistic talent and laborers, effectively, and replace them with generative AI, which is how do we put this? It's like if you worked at, I'm not going to do the whole analogy thing. It's too many steps. All I'm saying is that it's all using Stable Diffusion or other scraping methods that are taking artists' work from them anyway, and then using it without their consent, essentially not just taking away their jobs, but taking away their future jobs. It is something that the writers are on strike to prevent at the moment. Many other industries are taking generative AI companies to court because of licensing and copyright and things of that nature to try and stop this from happening. There have been talks about legislation and other kinds of regulation that could be written about AI, but we are functionally, socially at a standstill, politically at a standstill with all of these arguments. And Disney decided to just be like, well, fuck that. We're going to make our statement loud and clear. Fuck all you artists. We hope you never eat again. This is for striking. You should all starve and die. So, I'm always pretty antagonized by Disney as a company. Just generally, it frustrates me to no end. How this company owns so much of our media. They practically own nostalgia at this point. It's disgusting. And the kinds of irresponsible social messages, political messaging, propaganda that they put out through their work is even more reversed. I did a big rewatch of most of the Marvel stuff that had been put out at this point, and especially going through it movie by movie, kind of seeing the story unfold in a much more condensed kind of way than I originally encountered it. It's even more clear the kinds of right-wing propaganda that has been put into these stories that used to be, at their worst, well, I wouldn't say at their worst, but overall, fairly liberal leaning, if not, in some cases, absolutely radical. We've had this conversation 1,000 times where we eventually have to bring up that Black Panther did beat the fuck out of the KKK for several issues. Remember, Marvel was saying it with their chest many different times throughout their publication history. The X-Men just generally. And while, it's not exactly the original X-Men is not exactly like the most radical shit you could read right now. Current X-Men is pretty fucking out there, dude. I don't know if you know this, but the X-Men are living on the mutant island Krakoa. They have formed their own alliance. They are essentially, I wouldn't say isolationists, but they have created a mutant safe haven, a place where all mutants can go, and even most mutants, or all mutants, if I'm not mistaken, that were once dead were revived on Krakoa, and kind of made this whole mutant paradise. This crazy storyline that's been going on for years now, and I'm just saying, I haven't read a lot of it, but I'm based. And that's what we love about the X-Men. That's what it's there for. And most, I wouldn't say most, but many Marvel comics did have always had kind of a pretty radical perspective at times. It's a mixed bag always, but that's one of the things that I think Marvel always kind of had over DC is DC, it's not necessarily, I don't want to use specific examples, but they don't have a great track record with all that. And that's all I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not like a voracious DC comic reader, and there's reasons for that, but I don't need to get into it. But no matter how many of their fans I encounter, it's not like they had a lot of really radical storylines that dove into politics. Of course, there are a few, and acknowledge those and all that, but Marvel, of the two companies, was always kind of seen as more progressive, and I think there's reasons for that. So it's really disappointing to see James Rhodes before a committee, sidelining to his council about how he wants to carpet bomb Slovenia and shit like that, like as a joke that we're supposed to, as the audience, laugh at. I don't know. I hated every second. I tried to watch this show just so I could develop some kind of opinion about it. And yeah, it's very not different. I love seeing Sam Jackson in just about anything, and honestly, I'm a big fan of Emilia Clarke. Super talented, and really just has had a really hard time getting out from the Daenerys Targaryen character. Ultimately, it doesn't look like she's taking a lot of the whole typecasting thing. She hadn't been taking a lot of the jobs that want to do that to her, but at the same time, it's kind of like it's pretty clear that it's been hard for her to escape out from under the character and actually get other roles that are as prestigious as Daenerys Targaryen. Yeah, obviously an incredible talent. Always love to see her and Sam Jackson. And Don Cheadle's a fucking incredible actor. it's just so frustrated to see him be a mouthpiece for imperialism, and I really am sick of that. I don't like seeing it. I hate seeing it. I might have said this in a previous broadcast. It's weird. One of the weird things I noticed watching back through the catalog is Iron Man movies are like some of the most clear right-wing propaganda I've seen in years. Like, just really, really weird shit. From like how, like the whole Mandarin storyline is just wild. I mean, I need you to think about like how they portray that character, and how that conflict evolves. I mean, he's yeah, I guess this is one of the things that frustrates me the most about the Marvel productions is that they use some of the best, most talented people in the industry to be unapologetic mouthpieces for white supremacist imperialism, and I don't think that's how we should use talented artists. I don't know. It makes me fucking sick to see people like Ben Kingsley, Don Cheadle, Sam Jackson being used in this way. Especially, I mean, Sam Jackson like was a young civil rights like, you know, I don't. Yeah, it's just it is it's frustrating to see how even incredible talents with that kind of bona fides, you know, will still ultimately be made into mouthpieces, puppets for these things that I don't think they believe in. I mean, getting rich does change people radically, so who knows, but it's pretty frustrating. Yeah. I guess it is what brings me a lot of joy about seeing artists like who's winning in the industry, because it means that, you know, there's still people fighting the good fight. There's still people who aren't, you know, bought yet. And I love the fact that, you know, of all the media companies that could have picked up I'm a Virgo, it was Amazon, which, as you all know, is run by, the same person who owns Twitch, Jeffrey Bezos. Speaking of which, you can use your Amazon Prime subscription to get a free Twitch subscription to Nerdcraft. If you haven't used one, you can actually, I think it's worth mentioning. You can do that. But, Jeffrey likes to continue to appeal to liberal aesthetics, and that's why, you know, he bought the Washington Post and made it a worse publication. Part of why Twitch is owned by Amazon, and probably plays no small part in why Amazon ends up producing I'm a Virgo. The value of visual aesthetics. All that to say, ultimately, it reminds me of like Renaissance and like and later, even earlier, examples of like wealthy families, lords, and the people with influence, wealth, power in society would often be benefactors to artists of their time. And in a way, Jeff Bezos, and in a lot of those cases, they were unwittingly putting out propaganda that called to them directly, called to into question the way that society was run, made people rethink how these wealthy donors were putting much more harm into the world, even with how much they were helping these small percentage artists. So I think in a similar way, it's kind of how that works. It does, I would never be one of those people that's like, gotta change things from the inside, man, because we all do that shit. No one actually does. And if that were a true, honest thing that people were into doing, you would actually, I've seen that happen at least once ever before in human history. And, well, I don't know. I like evidence. You wanna make a claim like that, you gotta back it up, motherfucker. And so far, I haven't seen it, so present the fucking evidence. Get out of here with that shitty argument. Yeah, send me evidence. My email's in chat, motherfucker. I dare you. But honestly, I don't think anybody here is really about that. I don't think anybody listening would necessarily disagree with me, unless you're only here because you randomly found our channel and are now hate watching it. Because that is you. Yeah, if you are hate watching, monitoring, or surveilling any other way this broadcast, you can gently bring me in the night. Everything, I think I mentioned this earlier, but everything I say in this program is my own thoughts and my own opinions, and in no way reflect the feelings of Nerdcrafty Co. Do not come for Sam. I will pee directly into your eyes. If you do that, come at me. I have no worries about any of that. I am not afraid of you. Thank you. I do try. Oh, whoever was hate watching that. Okay, we can talk again freely, everybody. Don't worry. Yeah, we covered a lot of ground in the first hour. Fuck me. Okay. What else? I'm Virgo's great. Yellow Jacket is great. Bethel sucks. Secret Invasion, Bring Me Gently in the Night. Bruce Riley is based. Ocean Gate is chumps. Aleph is a mystery of the modern era and probably shouldn't happen and won't in any large way. I predict French punk music. That's one of the other things I had prepared for today. Did anybody ever listen to French punk music? Because somehow I went through an Italian punk phase. I went through like a French like post-punk kind of like return to French folk and garage kind of music, pop garage, I guess, more like. I went through a phase where I listened to a bunch of like Central and South American punk bands. I went through a phase where I was listening to like late 60s, early 70s Indonesian rock bands that were like more punk than most punk bands, Cambodian bands from a similar era. But yeah, I don't know how I just never listened to any French punk bands. So I am looking for recommendations. If you have recommendations for any French punk bands from any era, whether it's because I know that there's, I listened to a couple last night. The Slinky Toys was one of the ones I listened to more extensively. They don't have a lot out there though, but we love to see our ladies ripping into some punk music. The only reason I started on this journey was Kat showed me a community post from Droppy that was talking about, I guess, a beauty pageant that happened recently, and it was like international, so there's women from all over the world like being like, I'm from here, I'm from here, I'm from here. And they were like having to shout over a loud, roaring audience. So, and a lot of these women don't seem to be very familiar with having to project over something like that, even with a mic and everything. So they're like shouting, and some of their voices, you can tell, are not built for, not ready for shouting in that kind of way. But none less ready than the woman from France, who, when she says her nation of origin, sounds almost stereotypically like a goose. I don't know why, but I always think French are geese. Is that like propaganda? Is that the U.S.? It's from Swansea. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I assume it's some U.S. propaganda that I ate super young and don't know why I associate the French with geese, but I do. Yeah, that's the one that's more common. I don't know why I think geese, but anyway, I do. And when this woman said France, she was like, France! It was like, oh, you're... and then Julia said something about how, like, French isn't a great language to yell in, and I immediately was just like, well, what about French punk bands? Now I have to go look up French punk bands. And it's not as bad as you would think. Honestly, I think, but a lot of that is, like, there's a certain, like, almost British punk vocal affectation that the Slinky Toys singer specifically used. So I'm still diving into French punk music. Slinky Toys is one of the earliest examples, along with, I think it's Metal Bane, which... Yeah, okay, that's kind of like, yeah, especially, I just thought it was so strange that there's like such a long tradition, especially with US and British, like, punk bands, that, you know, I definitely am familiar with, and in the, like, the first wave of punk music and how it kind of, like, was imported across the globe, and many other, like, I mean, subgenres grew out of that. Whole cultural movements grew out of that. punk being imported across the world was really important. Like it's such an understatement to really think of punk as just music. It really was like a cultural movement that did traverse the world and has changed culture as we knew it for, in my estimation, most cases, the better. I think there's definitely shitty people that came out of punk rock, like Johnny Rotten can suck my fucking toes, and I mean that in the most disrespectful way I can possibly say it. The Sex Pistols were never a punk band. They were a boy band put together by propagandists, Vivian Westwood and Malcolm McLaren. They were bad people. Most of the people that Vivian and Malcolm ever worked with have negative fucking things to say about them, except for, I don't know, fashion people that worked with Vivian after that, but I don't really care about any of that. I didn't even really realize that Vivian Westwood had a whole, like, fashion career after her work with managing punk bands and running the sex shop in England, but I always just heard about how her and Malcolm were, like, two of the worst people ever. All of the stories from punks around the world talk about them like they are terrible people. And that's because in every way I've ever heard it, they are. They sold, like, swastika memorabilia through their shop. They loved the fucking Swazi and how it was so edgy and controversial because they're fucking stupid is the thing. And they're bad people. They exploited children's labor, made underage people work in the shop without pay in some cases. Many testimonials go on record about how Vivian was supposed to have been paying some workers and just never got around to it. Especially in the sex shop days. How she would employ, and even Johnny Rotten himself, John Linden, Leiden, whatever the fuck his name is, Sid Vicious, these people were exploited by Vivian and Malcolm as well, and they talk about it to no end. I mean, so does the rest of the Sex Pistols, but, like, they were children, and they were exploited so that Vivian and Malcolm could take the props that they had from their New York Dolls tour, who fired them because they were terrible people, and try and repurpose them on a bunch of ignorant young kids to try and kickstart some kind of punk movement in England. Long after Americans did it, you fucking dumbass British. You didn't have anything to do with the birth of punk. Fuck out of here with all your nonsense. Closest you ever came was the Kinks, and they were proto-punk. And honestly, they hate me, so they're okay in life. But America was doing proto-punk before even the Kinks did it. You have no argument. You have no leg to stand on. Fuck out of this argument. The British aren't punk, except for the Buzzcocks and Crass. I'm kidding. I'm being hyperbolic, but you get what I mean. They, especially Vivian and Malcolm, were never punks. They were exploiters of an art movement and a cultural movement that tried to turn it into commodify it, tried to capitalize on it. They are opportunists, never punks. I'm glad that. Wait, are they both dead? I know Vivian just died. Like 2 months ago. Yes, Malcolm died in 2000. Good riddance to bad rubbish. I don't like people who wear swastikas. I don't care how fucking ironic you fucking think it is. You wear that shit in my neighborhood, you can catch hands. Don't tempt me, Sam. Don't tempt me, Sam. Guys, Sam's trying to get me to dox myself off my... Sam, I can't believe you would tell me to tell everyone in chat my address. Oh my god, Sam. I'm kidding. Yeah, my bank information and social security. Yeah. Man, I'm gonna tell you behind the paywall. Join the Patreon. You think I'd make it easy for these fucks? Hell no. Well, I think you can, if you are afraid of stepping into that neighborhood and getting your ass fucking beat for wearing swastikas, I think you should just stop wearing swastikas. And maybe rethink your whole fucking shit. I don't know who told you Nazis were like in any way admirable, but they got their fucking cheeks clapped. They're not even allowed to be none of their emblems or insignias. Rhetoric is allowed in the state where they originated. Nazis got obliterated, and if it weren't for America, they wouldn't even be remembered. Most nations that fought the Nazis don't talk about them nearly as much as Americans do. We're Nazi obsessed because there are so many Nazis here, and were long before actual Nazis existed. Adolf Hitler kept a picture of Henry Ford in his office. Don't forget it. Nazis always gonna Nazi whenever they are. That's why we kick their fucking teeth in. Pure example of the best defense is a good offense. It's not just true in football. And again, I believe in rehabilitation, but sometimes that involves getting your teeth kicked in before you're able to rehabilitate. So. How that happens is entirely up to the motherfucker. Hey, you know, I understand, totally get it. Sam's telling me they're not a huge person, so their hands have not always been the best weapon. But shame, guilt and guilt are effective as well. I wouldn't disagree with that, especially public shaming. Oh my god, they hate that because they want to feel like they're the in-group, they're the only, and that's one of the major fatal flaws behind the ideology in the first place is that the in-group is always constricting, contracting. Fair. Yeah. There's no glory to be won from beating up someone Sam's size, but there is a lot of glory to be lost by getting your ass handled by them. So luckily, a lot of people who are looking for a boost to their ego aren't going to start shit with Sam. I think that's a cool part of being kind of a small person, is that past a certain age, you're not really getting bullied in the same way that you once were. And it's a very different kind of bullying. It still happens very often. It sucks, but it's very different at that point. You're no longer having to throw hands on a playground. Suddenly, you're having to negotiate a passive-aggressive interaction with some liberal or conservative or just some bad person. And guilt and shame in those cases work very, very well. Especially if you're able to weaponize internalized sense of guilt and shame. You? We're trying out here. It's the fuckedest thing. There's like 3 different blues, but no purple, and there's 2 greens, and they both look identical. Also, every color has a certain like variance in how well they lay down. Isn't it though? Yeah, I didn't know that, like, for a fact. It's just been, like, through, doing art that I've kind of, like, realized that, oh, well, there's not really, like, yellow ballpoints like there are virtually every other color of ballpoint. They exist, just not nearly, they're much more of a specialty thing, and that made me wonder why. Then I realized that there's certain complications to making a yellow painting, as well as, like, if you have, you know, the multi-pack of Sharpies, no matter how often you use any of the colors, some of those colors are going to run out a lot faster than others. What's another? Okay. Yeah, go check out Jazza's stuff. Jazza, have me on. We'll make some art, buddy. I have to check that out. I haven't seen that video. Oh, right. If you, yeah. Sam's off mic. So, Jazza, YouTuber, has a video Sam was telling me about that's like, shows them mixing their own paint out from pigment, and really you can tell the difference on like a lot of the different. You can see the difference in how some pigments are more chunky, some are more fine. And that sounds interesting. I would like to watch that. I was gonna do arms a minute ago, and then I forgot I was gonna do that. Pretty angry looking though, so you have to, you know, weigh those against each other, you know? We do have a pretty snatched waist, but also just so upset. I'm hungry, because, yeah, then obviously, you know, they're not eating super. Alright. Yeah, did you hear that? We'll be right back. Well, nothing in the kitchen's broken, so everything seems to be copacetic. But Ash is over here now, and he looks very guilty. He's running away now that I've looked at him. Little baby. Let's be guilty. Oh, other good news. Scott is back from a long trip. Scott was hanging out for the last couple weeks with my old collaborative, the director of the feature I was in, Donovan Reed, making their next feature together, which is super exciting. Can't wait to see it. I won't be in this one. It's kind of like a survival thing out in the wilderness. And I think Austin had some ideas for casting long before it went into production, or probably even before he met me. So I think he knew what he was looking for, and I was not quite it, but I'm super excited to see this project because it sounds right up my alley, film-wise. And I'm a super big fan of these two people coming together. And most of this, actually, also worth shouting out Dave Menard of Z9 Media, I believe it is. Also Santa Rosa local, somebody who I've had great experiences on set with. Was helping them out with this project in the crew, and it was really great to see a lot of very talented people whose work I care a lot about, whose success I root for working together on these projects. So keep your eyes out for want to say To Die Alone, but I don't think that's the title. I think I'm misremembering. No, yeah, To Die Alone. I'm not. But yes. You can find the Instagram account To Die Alone at To Die Alone Film. You can find Austin's work at Austin Smigalski, on Twitter as well, SMAGALSKI. You can also find kind of a middle point at Glass Creek Films. That's Austin's production company that he runs with his partner. Very good people. Can't wait to see this flick. Yeah. And it's an exciting time for Scott because he's got a lot of projects in the works. I'm not sure. Well, he just recently finished a short with his pal Patrick called Microdosing that's premiering very soon down here. Very select kind of showings for that film. So unless you're down in LA, probably not going to catch it this time around, but keep your eyes out for Microdosing. I'm super excited to see it. I haven't actually got to catch it yet, but from what I am aware of, this sounds my kind of movie. I mean, just the title sounds like my kind of shit, am I right? Have I talked about psychedelics? I don't know if I can make a good way of doing that. So I'm not going to talk about psychedelics. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, I know a lot of people that. No, I probably won't do that right now, but I have seen a lot of people talk about it pretty openly on here and on YouTube. Like their own personal experiences and even like black market purchasing them. Either way, I'm not gonna do that today. Yeah, you should check out Microdose. Come and see. Actually, I think Patrick actually had some very classic looking VHS tapes that are in a very limited run. I would go check out. Well, go check out Microdosing. You'll be able to, I think it's just Microdosing on Instagram. Microdosing films. Yes, you can follow that at Lucha Style on IG. You can even find the IMDb to keep track of it at Microdosing parentheses 2023. If Google search that and want to keep a track on that way, probably be the best way to do it. But yeah, really exciting time for the homeless. Shouts out, go check out their shit, support all of your artist friends, and support mine too, goddamn. We're all trying out here. All doing our best. Alright, it is just about 5 o'clock. I'm going to take a quick break and probably start a new piece. Stay tuned. We'll be right back in just a few.
I'm hiding in the backseat. I bought a new car, we drove it up the lot. Bought the fuzzy dice, the price was right. We took it far on highways and air. The wind rushed through your hair. We were cruising the roads. You whispered your name into my ear. We're syncopated, intoxicated. Take on me, I'm hiding in the backseat. Vindicated, you'll never make it. Take on me, I'm hiding in the backseat. A work of art, the Toyota won't start. I look into your eyes, a boot pushes my face into the dirt. A work of art, the Toyota won't start. I look into your eyes, a boot pushes my face into the dirt. We're syncopated, intoxicated. Take on me, I'm hiding in the backseat. Vindicated, you'll never make it. Take on me, I'm hiding in the backseat. Car sick, I'm car sick. Car sick, I am car sick. Car sick, I'm car sick. Car sick, I am car sick. Car sick, I'm car sick. Car sick, I am car sick. Bite the rope that twists around your wrist line. A hand and traps you with its tricks fight. The last strike's hard to cross your face by. The world that puts you when you place bite. The rope that twists around your wrist line. A hand and traps you with its tricks fight. The last strike's hard to cross your face by. The world that puts you when you place. Bite the rope that twists around your wrist line. A hand and traps you with its tricks fight. The last strike's hard to cross your face by. The world that puts you when you place bite. The rope that twists around your wrist line. A hand and traps you with its tricks fight. The last strike's hard to cross your face by. The world that puts you when you place.
All right, friends, we're back in it. Thank you for your patience. I've been yammering a lot this stream. No, I was gonna start a new one, but I feel like there's more that I can do to this. Let's fuck around. I might hate this. Let's fuck around. You know? I'm liking these green kind of outlines and started on the line. Let's continue that.
Tell you how I feel about you, 'cause it scares me. The kind of love
Cool
is
figure.
not enough that doesn't prepare me. And no, I won't say I'm sorry, 'cause I'm not. In fact, I'm happy. I'm just caught in all these feelings, licking wounds, unfinished feeling. Is this my heart beneath my lungs? Bleeding lips and picking thumbs.
crushing skulls just to get a little bit closer to you, and I knew what I had to do. Play the heartstrings through and through, and I might have won the battle, but I lost the war. And I got my bloody knuckles knocking on your door. Words on paper, words written down to keep you around. And they're just words on paper, words written down to keep you around. Was a military coup World War, hot in most tender places. I knew what I had to do. Keep the blood pumping through and through, and I might have seen a lot, but I cocked the bus. The cup was overflowing when I spilled my guts. Words on paper, words written down to keep you around. And they're just words on paper, words written down to keep you around.
Okay.
Sick again, and I'm puking on the floor. Getting sick again, and I'm puking.
Liking this gray color a lot. I was a little worried that it would be too,
Words on paper,
what's the word?
words written down.
Warm, I guess.
And they're just words on paper,
But it's actually just right.
down to keep you around.
It's actually working really well with that blue and that green. I'm loving it.
I'm a prisoner, clinging to the bars. The hours in the gutter, wishing on a star. We can catch the rise, we can watch the fall. You can pull the trigger, you can hear it all. Can't stop the bleeding. Can't stop the bleeding. Can't stop the bleeding. La 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 la. Can't stop the bleeding. La 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 la.
Huh. Yeah, okay. Let's fuck this up. Let's go right ahead and fuck this up.
I'm a prisoner, clinging to the bars. The hours in the gutter, wishing on a star.
Oh, piss. I remember what I was going to do while we were on break. I was going to show Sam some stuff that I wanted to show you guys. I've been working on digitally. I'm full transparency here. I really like working on digital art, but I have a hard time talking while I do it. Which is not conducive to the nature of this program. I need to be able to communicate my process at least to you while I'm working on what I'm working on. And digital art definitely gets me in a very like internal kind of place where I am thinking super hard about what I'm doing, especially with some of the projects I've been doing, like the Christ and Raggle portrait that I'm doing for Matt, and Ironhearts just kind of generally. But also, like, I've started working on, spoiler alert, started working on a piece that kind of was just like something that I thought was a funny joke in my head, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, this is actually a really good idea. I should pursue this. Not because it's going to be like go viral or something like that, pull me out of obscurity or something, but because it's two things that I care a lot about, and think are a funny juxtaposition of ideas. Like, so Masters of the Universe, right? Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, Courtney Cox, Billy Barty. It's a classic. I talk about it a lot because it's brilliant in a way that I don't think it was intended to be, but because we are astute observers and rabid propagandists, I have drawn a lot of my own ideas about what that movie is supposed to be saying, whether or not they are what the team envisioned. So I love that movie in an unironic, genuine kind of way. I think it's only gotten better with age. I think it's something that should be revisited. I'm incredibly grateful, as usual, to Kevin Smith for using it as kind of a reference point in the Masters of the Universe TV show he produced for Netflix that is actually very good, and you should watch it. The only reason it has a lot of bad reviews is because little baby Nazi boys on the internet got mad about the fact that it mostly takes place talking about Tila, Man-at-Arm's daughter, He-Man's childhood best friend. She is the focus of the story, and boy did Nazis really hate that. So there's a lot of rabid right-wing dorks that review bomb it, like a lot of shows that even have the most moderate, like kind of progressive bend to it. Basically that hire women to do jobs. You get that a lot. But honestly, it's a really fantastic show. It talks about has a lot of really great moments in it. Henry Rollins as a villain, perfectly cast as Trapjaw. Or is it? No, it's not Trapjaw. It's the dude with three faces. Try something. It doesn't matter. Incredible performance. Henry Rollins doesn't get to shine as often as he should, and he really shines in this role. One of his best in recent memory. He outshines Mark Hamill, who plays Skeletor, and honestly, Mark Hamill goes so hard in the recording booth, it's hard to really outshine him, but Henry is perfectly cast and actually does, like, maybe the best performance of his acting career. Henry Rollins, if you don't know, is the legendary punk singer from State of Alert and Black Flag and the Rollins Band, who has turned his persona into a whole career where he does. After punk, he started doing a lot of Hannah Gadsby stand-up. No, one-man shows, essentially, that aren't necessarily comedy, but aren't not comedy. And a lot of it focusing around his political beliefs and frustrations living in a society that doesn't care for its people. Really beautiful human being, honestly. For a guy you would think is not a very... you look at Henry Rollins and you think, this guy's probably got bad opinions. Well, he does sometimes, but most of the time he's a very astute observer of the human condition and a great public speaker as well as performer. And like I said, just one of the greatest punk vocalists of all time. I was massively inspired by Henry Rollins' work. When I was singing in a punk band, he's been one of my favorite media figures since. God, I think when I was first getting into punk, I think is when the Rollins show started. Yeah, I was in high school when the Rollins show started airing, IFC, and my dad lived in Santa Rosa and had the not just basic cable kind of cable setup at his bachelor pad in Santa Rosa. So I watched the original run of the Rollins show, watched him let Gene Simmons absolutely destroy himself in an argument. Henry Rollins wasn't having an argument with Gene Simmons, but Gene Simmons went into the interview thinking that he was going to get an argument or some kind of pushback from Henry. But Henry just watched Gene Simmons kind of self-destruct in front of him and just laughed. And it was really, really great. One of my favorite moments. Actually, one of my favorite moments from Henry is... I'm getting so off topic. Anyway, Masters of the Universe, love it a lot. But I also love Legend of Zelda. And as most of you have probably heard by now, they have optioned Illumination, the same company that the Mario movie, optioned Legend of Zelda for a feature. Probably animated, probably CG, probably a lot like the Mario, which does not bode well. I am not a fan of that animation style. I think it looks kind of trash. I know a lot of people work really hard on them. I'm not trying to take anybody's hard labor out, make fun of them for it, but it's not a style that I like in animation. I think it's fast food animation. It's the best way I could put it. Not that it doesn't look really good, it doesn't look like there's not a lot of work that goes into it. It's simply just, it lacks a aesthetic originality, a creative voice that speaks on a level that's beyond just what you are expecting. I'm not I didn't really like who likes the Minions? I mean, a lot of people do, but everybody I talk to in real life is confused by why the Minions are so popular other than children like them. But I digress. Point is that I like Legend of Zelda, I like Masters of the Universe, and I really like that movie. And so one of the idea I had the other day was I take that cover of Masters of the Universe and I redraw it like a Zelda live-action movie. So Dolph Lundgren is obviously Link. Obviously Franklin Chella is Ganondorf. Obviously Courtney Cox. Well, that one's not obvious, but we're probably going to make Korra from Tears of the Kingdom, and also Breath of the Wild. But yeah, I'm going to just essentially change a few of the elements and make that cover a Legend of Zelda live action starring Dolph Lundgren, which is just a fun little idea that I had to execute because who else is going to, if not me? I mean, you might if you're hearing this and you're faster at getting things done than I am, which very likely. I'm notoriously slow. But yeah, it's a fun little project I've been working on off stream. I'm probably not going to do it on stream because, like I was saying, I don't retain the ability to communicate effectively, working on stuff where I'm having to do that kind of like extrapolation from the reference in digital to come up with new ideas. I've noticed, and I'm probably going to do a lot more of how these physical medium live streams, I'm much more capable of communicating with you while I also work on art. And that is what I'm striving for with this program, because I like doing so. And honestly, it reminds me of, like, I need to watch on YouTube. Yeah, it's not this. Got a bunch of pastel shot. But it reminds me of, like, back, like art nights. Having nights where I would have friends visiting, come over to the house or whatever, and me and Kat and them would sit down and chat and make art, stuff like that. And that's kind of the feeling I want to get out of this personally. And I think those nights were just really fun, amazing nights. And those conversations are always so much, they're so important to me. Thinking back on a lot of those nights, they're some of the best parties I've ever been to, when it's just like me, my partner, and maximum a handful of other people, just chewing the shit, and making some silly drawings. So I would encourage you, draw along with me. Send me your art that you do while you're watching the live streams on my Instagram or my email. Sam dropped it in the chat a while ago. You can catch me at Lava Submersible on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm not supposed to talk about my Twitch account, and I don't want anyone looking at my Facebook, because that's got people I actually know there. I mean, you can find it, and it's not going to be like, oh no, but I don't know. I don't really, do much on Facebook anymore, because who does? But I do think, actually, it's an interesting thing. We all hate Mark Zuckerberg. We all hate Facebook at this point. It sucks. I think we can all acknowledge that. However, now that Elon has taken over Twitter, Facebook's kind of the best option. Everybody knows Instagram and TikTok suck. They are essentially clones of each other at this point, and neither of them work very well. And the monetization or ability to even get seen in within the algorithm on both of those platforms is nigh on impossible, especially if you don't have a huge fan base pre-established before you make the account. TikTok or Twitter is basically trash now. You can't barely even use Twitter. It crashes. It has major issues with. You don't even want to use it because Elon Musk owns it. He's the absolute uber nerd, the king of suck, the clown prince of shit takes, one of the absolute worst people in society. So you don't really want to be there. But then it's also not functioning very well. And they've also done, in the time Elon's bought it, they fired over 3,500 people or something like that. I don't have the exact figure on me, but it's a crazy amount of layoffs. I might even be understating it. I would have to look it up. Should do that. Should be responsible. But so no one really wants to be on Twitter, which leaves Facebook. And Meta sucks. Zuckerberg sucks. They're both dorks, but Zuckerberg arguably is less of an awful person in the way that he runs his business than Zuckerberg. Both have considerable controversy for the way that they do things, but robotic, weird ass fucking Mark Zuckerberg is still more normal a person than Elon. How many layoffs? Twitter.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Tonight we have a very special act for you. On guitar, Whisk Escobibo.
That's great. It took me a second to get where you were going with that, but then the image flashed into my head like hot fire seared into my brain. Oh my god. Yeah, and he knows how to use sunscreen, and he likes his grilled meats. Grilled meat. Oh, so good. Oh my god. This was April 12th of this year. A company is facing a host of lawsuits and other legal actions on behalf of some of the 6,000 employees who were laid off or were terminated, over how they were terminated and the benefits they're owed. 6,000 people. I think that is international numbers and not just U.S. numbers, but 6,000 people lost their fucking job because Elon Musk bought a business that didn't turn a profit notoriously and thought he could try and make it turn a profit, and has failed at every turn, even by more normal business standards in the United States. Absolute fail son, absolute loser, unfuckable nerd. What a dork. That you will never convince a billionaire that not everything needs to be for profit. That is impossible. That is challenge level impossible. Goated side quest that can only be achieved by a party of around 3 million or 300 million pissed off proletarians. Hey, those 3 Christmas ghosts did 1 billionaire and never again. Get on your shit, Christmas ghosts. Every year we need to get one of these billionaires fucking terrified of being alive, because Ebenezer Scrooge happened like a jillion years ago. We need another one, at least one a year. Bare minimum. Make a new agreement between yourselves as a company or collective or whatever you fucking Christmas ghosts are doing with your lives, afterlives, and do it not just at Christmas, do it at every major religious holiday. Go through every religion. As you include national holidays, include even the superfluous holidays like Donut Day or whatever, and then we'll have far less billionaires, far quicker, which is what the world needs to survive. I have other ideas about how to do it that don't involve Christmas ghosts, but Christmas ghosts, if you're listening, get the fuck on top of your goddamn job. You're not doing anything else, and Ebenezer Scrooge happened forever ago. We need to cancel the wealth inequality in this country. Yeah, I mean, it would work on Warren Buffett. That's all I'm saying. That guy doesn't eat anything that isn't like ridiculously bad for you. I think there's an entire economy built around Warren Buffett's, like, I think Warren Buffett, Donald Trump, there's a bunch of other billionaires that have a very similar kind of vibe where there's no way they should be alive because they eat like shit, they are shit people, there's just like no redeemable quality for them to be alive, nor is there any kind of like rationality behind how they're alive other than just like rampant scientific experimentation. That is probably illegal in the United States, but because they're billionaires, they get away with it. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, how old is Warren Buffett? Like 80, in his 80s? I mean, "92 years old? This man has no business being alive at 92 years old with how much he is. Huh? I mean, that's the thing. I think we can look at most old rich billionaires and be like, oh, they're part like Turtle. I think is what the example Sam used. We have like Mitch McConnell. Bill Gates currently looking a lot like a Dana Carvey in the Turtle Club. He is turtly enough for the Turtle Club. If you saw that picture, not a flattering angle for Elon Musk of them at I think it was the World Cup Oh man, boy did he look like a drawing of mine. Absolutely terrifying. But yeah, Warren Buffett definitely looking kind of like a turtle at 92 years old as well. My only issue with this this stand is that turtles are actually hella cool, and I like them, and I have never liked a single billionaire or aged wealthy man with political power that uses that to make the world a worse place for everyone. They are not turtly in the true sense. They are turtly only aesthetically, and only in the ways that turtles. It is still unfair to turtles because they're very cute, and Mitch McConnell, that man ain't cute. He's like. You know what it reminds me of, actually? I had this theory as a child that I didn't really tell anybody about because it was such a ridiculous idea that no one could prove or disprove. To me at that point, I just never really talked to anybody about that until I was old enough to know that that's a silly thing to think. But I thought when I was a kid, I had this thought that ultimately old people and babies look identical, or almost the exact same thing. Old people, you have to change their diapers, they get bald, they don't really do much except for cry and be confused. And babies, bald, cry, be confused, eat poop, change their diaper. That's they're the same thing. So I just had this. My theory was that we age to about a certain point, midway through life, maybe 40s, 50s, something like that. And then you start reverting back to a child. You lose the pigment in your hair. Your skin becomes more delicate and easy to puncture. And then eventually you just revert back to nothing the way that you started. And honestly, this isn't a bad theory. This makes perfect sense if you think about it. It's also just crazy enough that I know that it's wrong, but it's also I know in my heart I'm right. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah, I did say eat poop you were eating poop, but I hope everyone understood there's a comma in there. I was listing things. Although I wouldn't be surprised with how much people talk about drinking pee and how some people just hold that as a normal belief that needs no investigation into it. I've seen so many interviews in my life at this point where that just happens. Someone just casually brings up that they drink their own piss. And I'm for health reasons, and it kind of just, it's one of those things that makes me lose a little bit of faith in our ability to survive as a species. They call it human waste for a reason, but these people don't really even think like us like that. When you get to the point where you're drinking piss, you're so far down the disinformation and conspiracy theory rabbit hole that I was deep into conspiracy shit. I was never gonna drink no fucking piss, man. No. Dude, don't. Don't tell them boogers are edible. I don't think they care. I don't think they even, I don't know how are they still alive? That's the unfair thing. Is if you're drinking your own piss in a way that's not a kink for you, I don't even think a lot of people who are in the waterworks, kink community are really into that, or trying to drink your pee. I think if they are, that's a different thing than drinking it for medical reasons. It's very, very different. I think we need to acknowledge that the people who are drinking it because it makes them horny are way cooler, smarter, and better people than the people who are drinking it because someone on the internet told them it would cure their fucking, like, eczema or some shit. They will never say it. They will never see a doctor and think, I should listen to this person. I know! That's the fucking thing. And honestly, it's part of the problem is that our health insurance in this country, our ability to receive medical care in this country is so abysmal, so difficult to access, that people turn to these fucking kooks, these fucking snake oil salesmen, these piss oil salesmen on the fucking internet to talk about how they're going to cure the ailments that truly are affecting them because they can't get regular fucking health care. Oh my god, piss oil salesmen coming right up. They are pink skinned. What kind of, let's hit the background real quick. We'll go light and hit it fast. I should probably be just working on black paper. I have some, it's just kind of smaller, so it'd be hard to see while I'm streaming. But I always want to work on a black surface. It's like, I almost always am doing this on any piece I'm working on. It's like starting off by blacking the back. Dude, send me your black canvas. Oh my god. Like, no pressure, but if that's something you are... Dude, yeah, that would be rad as hell. I have a few black canvases myself. Me and Kat have so few at this point that I haven't really started any new pieces because I have so many old ones that I should be working on. But I constantly am having, like, anybody who's an artist has the same problem, where coming up with a new piece, coming up with a new idea feels a lot easier than going back into a piece you spent 12 hours on already and have to lay out all of your acrylic or oils, all of the other supplies you need to paint, and remember how you got to the version of the colors that are on the canvas you already worked on, which in some cases is incredibly frustrating. If you remember the mask piece I was doing a while ago, I was constantly having to balance out the ratio of blue to green to white in the color matching for that mask. It was, it's part of the process of painting, and that was just one color. That was just to get that kind of yellowy, kind of foresty kind of green that I guess it's more of like a blue. You tell me. I think this is more of like a teal, I guess, looking at it. It's so, yeah, but just, everything's fine. But yeah, to get to this color consistently, it's just one color, but it still took quite a bit of effort. Yeah, let me know in the chat if you think that's finished, because I think it's finished at this point, but I also sometimes look at it and go, there's something missing. I want to do that. There is glitter, just not enough. I get it. Dragon Monster glitter, yeah. Okay, let's find a horizon. Where do I want it? How much of this piss oil salesman do we want here? I think I'm gonna do, this is our horizon right here. No, higher. Go on top there. Yeah. Then we'll darken that up. And then I wanted to do some like, I wanted to give it like some shady, kind of spooky, maybe not spooky, but like some aesthetic kind of like touches, like maybe a lamppost back here. Maybe a couple of them, one closer to the foreground. Let's actually just put it coming out, make it nice and thick here. Sam is planning a sticker for the piss oil sale. So wish me luck, but I don't make this bad, so that we have a new sticker that you can buy. But also keep your eyes out for that sticker in the near future. Faithfully, either. Because no matter how bad I think my art is, Sam is intensely supportive and it's on me. We all deserve in our lives. Thank you, Sam. Ooh, this. We're getting pissed. We're getting pissed, okay? Let's do. Oh, we don't want it to look too good, right? I mean, it's gotta kind of look like shit. If I was a Soviet propagandist, what would I do? I would have started this different, complete. We would be in the bottom 16th for the horizon. Everything would be going on up here, coming down. That's an aesthetic principle. Socialist propaganda was really good. Like, and I mean in a aesthetic way, and also because I love uplifting the pulse. Also, big fan. Yes, Soviets did some stuff that most nations are also guilty of. Let's be real. But I'll never say they were innocent. But also they made those bangers too. Let's not lie to ourselves. They certainly weren't worse than America. Well, the Soviets. I mean, there's a lot of books you could read on the subject. I'm not. Well, not everybody. That's the big distinction. I mean, I'm not saying that we don't need to get a significant majority of, or if not the entirety of the proletariat sold on the idea of communism or socialism. And as most of you know, I'm a rotten, filthy little anarchist. So I am not always going to be the person to look to on this one. I mean, I'm a big fan of communism, socialism as a transitionary phase, a precursor to anarchism. I think a lot of anarchists look at it more or less in that way. And I don't think that that's because I don't like the ideology, the concept of communism or socialism. It's simply that I think that an anarchist society is an incredible long shot from the current state of our systems of organization, of economics of society in general. But anarchism is truer to the nature of humanity once we get past all of the indoctrination and conditioning that we've all endured as people living in, well, I guess you could say a republic, you could say a lot of different things. I mean, you could throw out terms like, I don't know, theocracy or oligarchy or, whatever you want to call the United States. But we all have to, point is that I am a big fan of both socialism and communism in practice and in theory. I think that there have been no shortage of historical examples of where communism, socialism worked famously well until fascism or capitalism decided it no longer wanted it to be thriving and immediately couped and genocide the fuck out of those countries. These are well documented. I can No, I'm trying to figure out what you mean. Like, are you talking about Oh, okay, yeah. So, ultimately, the proles need to get along. They need to, but especially in the modern era, a lot of previous philosophers, writers within the communist and anarchist writing of the past, a lot of the methodology, essentially, is not the same translated into this modern era, and all of the obstacles we would face trying to do such a thing. Absolutely. Only Well, I mean, the frustration, Sam brings up a really interesting point that often gets at me. The thing that often just drives me up a wall about the nature of our society and the ability to communicate effectively, the way that information is distributed, is that Sam says in a way that I think is incredibly genuine, and honestly I can empathize here, is that hopefully a lot of some of these billionaires and incredibly wealthy, powerful people decide to voluntarily give up that wealth and that power, and understand the the promise of a better future for all under systems like communism, socialism. The thing that I'm referring to that is so frustrating to me is simply that because of the horrendous way that our society has decided to gatekeep information and knowledge, is such that only people like Warren Buffett and Elon Musk and many other wealthy and powerful people, most of these people are introduced at a much younger age than most of the population in the United States. They are taught about these concepts. Part of the issue is the people teaching them those subjects in the first place are coming from a colonial or Western perspective, imperialist perspective. Even at quote-unquote liberal universities in the United States, people will be taught only the most red scary version of communism or socialism. And even when that isn't the case, most people from the quote-unquote upper class in the United States have been told the same kind of red scare propaganda that we're all familiar with, incredibly familiar with, at an even younger age as well by their incredibly wealthy, typically very wealthy parents who are intentionally indoctrinating their children into the same cult-like version of capitalism that we currently exist under. So not only, what I'm saying is not only are these people fully aware of the potential for a better life for all, they are well educated and well aware that there are no shortage of the kind of benefits that come from rejecting capitalism and the regressive kind of social dynamics that exist within the United States. This is something like some of them have even talked about in interviews. And this is self-preservation at its most basic. And in a way that we can't relate to as normal ass fucking people with no money. Because they're not trying to preserve their lives. They're not trying to preserve for the future so that they may survive. Their only goal in life is to remain at the top of a hierarchy within society, so that and continue to grow more wealth. That is the ideology. That is the way that they believe the world should work. Is that wealth should be mostly put in the hands of a very few people who maintain the in-group and the idea of the regressive social structure that benefits a very few amount of people who they all basically went to the same school. It's no, yeah, it's part of why. It's part of why conspiracy was so easy for me to believe in, because I think actually this relates to a George Carlin quote when he was absolutely destroying this dude on Bill Maher way back in the day. Carlin got invited on Bill Maher forever ago. I think this is like the late 80s, early 90s, and was arguing with some, I don't know, some Republican, I can't remember who the fuck it was, doesn't matter, about an informal kind of conspiracy. You don't need, I think I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of, you don't need any kind of formal conspiracy when you all went to the same schools, you all share the same kind of elitist community, you all understand and were conditioned under the same ideology. Just referring to the quote-unquote elite. class, the capitalist class. I think maybe in a lot of the discourse around it, Carlin, we've all forgotten that Carlin was absolute fucking beast. Not always a person whose work you can look at now and go like, yeah, he was very clearly someone I am 100% on board with all the time. But minus the handful of slightly regressive types of humor he would use in his stand-up, his personal belief system was very clear when he was talking in interviews and things like that. And Carlin was a lot farther left than I think a lot of people want to believe he was. But ultimately, yeah, Carlin was talking about the same kind of thing we're talking about here, where it's not necessarily... It's not the conspiracy that I thought when I was a teenager, where all of these wealthy elites belong to the Freemasons or the Skull and Bones, and that's why they were evil and doing what they were doing, because they had some idea for a new world order where only elites were allowed to survive. That thing that I was trying to search for the words for and putting Mason or Illuminati on top of, that's just capital. That's just it's just capitalism, baby. Yeah, absolutely. There is a intentional, united front of wealthy, elite, powerful people to continue to be wealthy, elite, powerful people. But it is not, some secret society that nobody knows about. This is a very clear result of rampant, unfettered capitalism with continuing deregulation, making it harder and harder for normal people to survive while they continue to gain and hoard their wealth. So yeah, it's a It's interesting because, at a cop. Even Marx talked about this a little, quite a bit. There is, I think it's in Capital, I can't really remember, where Marx started talking about the, right, so, one of the, what's up? Yeah, loud and clear. Thank you, bud. We've got 1 hour left, yes. The dictatorship of the proletariat. Now, the phrase itself is enough to make many people, especially liberals, kind of quiver inside. Thinking about the word dictatorship as any kind of positive connotation is nigh on impossible. However, if you divorce yourself from I'm good,
My lips
as long as you are.
dead skin between my teeth. Can't fight this feeling thirsty. We talk
No,
past
I'm
the
doing
day
fine.
on the phone and I'm still alone.
Are you sure?
Two mistakes. You give and you take. I leave and I stay and they say
I'm cool, man. I just, as long as you're happy.
It's just infatuation. I say that I'm broken. I need a relocation of the soul. New dice to roll, 'cause I'm too broke to pay the price of this toll.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on my second drawing, bro.
And I told, and I told them. I told, and I told them. But I knew
I'm-
my real mistake was not telling you.
I mean-
And I know my real mistake is not letting go. Let go. Let go, let go, let go.
It's not possible to do both? Whatever you think is best, Sam. I don't, that kind of stuff isn't necessarily my, expertise or anything like that. I'll trust you. Let's see. Dictatorship of the proletariat. Right. Makes a lot of liberals bristle, just on the phrase alone, because, yeah, dictatorship. It is a very charged word, especially in a modern context. However, if you read into the actual meaning of the phrase dictatorship of the proletariat, it is referring to the intermediary stage the intermediary between the current economic situation we live in under capitalism and the transition into socialism or communism, wherein the proletariat seizes the means of the production and implements it and implements direct elections that the proletariat is in control of rather than the previous organization of the system. This is the state before the state of essentially revolutionary period before or after the removal of the system of capital and replacing it with socialism or communism. It is not some kind of individual dictator, which is the current kind of system that we live under. Not that there is one individual billionaire running capitalism or anything like that, but rather the class of capitalists running the way our society is run in a way that does not serve the proletariat, but only the capitalist class. And this is in the pursuit of changing that dynamic so that the proletariat is now the holder of the reins, as it were. The transition into a state of communism or socialism. Trying to figure out where. Hey, welcome in anybody just joining. Should warn you, if you're just joining, that we're gonna cover controversial topics. It's the 4th, and I'm a queer Lebanese anarchist that hates the United States. So, if you're vibing on 4th of July right now, you probably don't want to be here. Respect it, appreciate it, and if you are here for that, let's fucking go, baby. I'm working on a little bit of art and talking a bunch of shit. We've gone over a bunch of subjects already. Shouts out once again to all of the homies doing great work out there. From my roommate and good buddy Scott and all of his endeavors, to all of the other collaborators I've worked with in the past on movies and things of that nature that are all doing great stuff right now, as well as some of the bigger artists like Boots Riley making some very cool, very awesome, very radical art in a way that is still sort of unbelievable to me. How did Jeff Bezos give Boots Riley work? I don't know. I don't care. I'm just glad the dude got to put out I'm a Virgo. That's just good. Definitely go watch it if you haven't. All you need is your Amazon Prime sub to on and oh, okay. How big? Okay. Fuck, dude, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I've never stretched canvas before, so we'll do a whole stream just where I'm learning how to do that shit. Yeah, if you're new, if you've never been here before, you can usually find me doing art every Tuesday from 3:30 to 7. Usually cover some amount of current events, talk shit on ruling class, piss all over internet nerds, and yeah. I like making art. I'm an actor, an artist, musician. Have been for a very long time. I kind of do it for a career, sort of. Debatably. Oh. Fuck, I don't think I can do this on stream. I just realized that to draw the piss oil salesman the way I was thinking was I was going to draw a cartoon wiener. And I don't think I can draw a cartoon wiener on Twitch. Well, I'm glad I thought about that before I started drawing the cartoon wiener. Well, yeah, I mean, this is the piss oil salesman. I'm currently drawing the piss oil salesman. Oh, this guy, he's an entrepreneur, damn it. Not trusted some bargain basement piss, they gotta use their own, little freaks. Well, I guess when we were talking about it, it's more like people drinking their own piss most of the time, and not in a kinky way, in case you missed that part. Not in a kinky way, in a way that they think is medically useful, and that's very stupid is the thing. Very, very dumb kind of line of thinking. Should be shamed publicly for having these kinds of thoughts. And always surprising to me when people just freely admit it. They drink their own piss because some piss oil salesman on the internet told them to drink their own urine. So I guess that's maybe why the piss oil salesman is drinking his own piss. Maybe that's a good idea. That's the concept I'm running with. Is the piss oil salesman in this image is selling you his piss. But I think that's because the best way to articulate the idea that these people selling the idea of like the way that this might be some kind of homeopathic kind of fucking remedy or some shit. Those are the piss oil sales. They aren't necessarily selling you, although some are, and they're not necessarily selling you their piss. They're selling you the idea of drinking piss. Your own. So, that's the... Yeah. So funny. Didn't Tony Robbins end up being a total creep too? Just in a different way than selling piss. Yeah. I remember, did you see Shallow Hal? One of the early Jack Black and... God, it was Gwyneth Paltrow, wasn't it? You know, it's kind of fat phobic. And by kinda, I mean very. But I only thought of it because pretty sure Tony Robbins has like a cameo in it where he's like, I can't remember if he talks to Gwyneth Paltrow or he talks to Jack Black and is like part of the incitement of the plot. But if I'm not mistaken, that's how that works. It's been a minute since I watched that movie. I'm pretty sure it's a fairly Farley Brothers movie. Post, the one where Jim Carrey, Me, Myself, and Irene. After that one, I think it was their next one. And if I'm not mistaken, like, Jack Black was the Shallow Hal title character who was... Yeah, it was the idea, I think, was that he was so shallow he wouldn't date, like, bigger women or something like that. It's obviously, like, I think they were trying to say some kind of, like, internalized, like, fat phobia the character himself had, because Jack Black has always been kind of the chubby, funny dude. Even earlier in his career when he was, like, you know, probably doing a lot of stuff that probably was great for him to try and get his weight down. I'm glad that he's, like, embraced all of the Jack Blackness that encompasses that since then. But, yeah. Yeah. And then he meets Gwyneth Paltrow in a fat suit, but he sees her as skinny Gwyneth Paltrow. And that's the movie. I'm pretty sure it was the film. Okay.
Lately I've been lonely and it's hard to admit that it's hard to be somebody without.
No, I was gonna go to this party, but like for a number of reasons, me and Kat, like, well, I think part of it was like we were having a lot of issues figuring out how we were going to like logistically get back here later tonight. Like, I know that the buses and trains, they run pretty late, but it being a party, we're not entirely sure when we would be wanting to leave. I know that Kat's been like getting pretty sleepy by like 10, like they've been getting up really early. So by like 10, they're pretty ready to be in bed. But you know, parties change things. You never know what's gonna happen in those kinds of situations. So I wasn't sure about like that, and I was gonna do a shorter stream. Then it was like, yeah, just more of the transportation issues, like trying to figure out how we were gonna get there, get back, and all of that stuff. It was just looking to get hard. It's just getting harder and harder to figure out how that was all gonna work. So we decided, kind of last minute, we weren't gonna go. These are, you know, it was a party with people that I didn't really get to know very well outside of one of my last jobs. They were coworkers of mine, but like I was working at Monty's, and that's like vegan and vegetarian burger place, and like half of the employees there were in punk bands. Just like a lot of people that I know I would probably get along with, but because we were at work, you know, it's like hard to develop those kinds of relationships. I'm sure most of your experience. Workplace is not the best place to try and make buds, sadly. Yeah, that whole like workplace family thing is part of the reason most people distrust the fact that they, you know, the people they meet at work, like whether or not they can actually have like a solid friendship, because like you're constantly being told that, you know, we're all family here, we all get along and stuff like that, and it never feels genuine. Like, every time I've ever worked at a place that talks like that, like 2 weeks down the road, I'm hearing people like massively shit talk each other behind their backs and shit like that. It's just like, okay, so none of y'all really meant any of that shit. Okay, good to know. I don't like it. No, but honestly, these people are really nice folks, and I really am kind of bummed we're not going, but it's just like, I had no idea how we were going to get back, and frankly, that gives me a kind of anxiety that I wouldn't wish upon most people, that I wouldn't wish upon anybody I care about, especially not my partner, who, you know, we both struggle with social anxiety, so not something I wanted to test. You know, it's like we haven't really been out. Like, I've been out a couple of times, but they haven't really been out to a party since before COVID, so I know this would be a little bit stressful for them. And yeah, not having like clear way back home, definitely it's not like something I want to fuck with, you know what I mean? So we're not going. I'm kind of bummed about it, but it's also like for the best, I think. Right, yeah. If it were like, and this place, it's like, it was several miles like from us, so, I mean, I would just walk most places. I have no problem with that. Like, it was like 8 miles, so it would take a minute to get home. But, I mean, that's how I would normally do it, in the old days. Especially because I was drinking back then. But even like after I quit drinking, I was, I like, not having the responsibility of driving. I haven't owned a car, so that's. My car started taking shit 6 months before the fires hit Sonoma County in like 2016, 18, whatever it was. The big fires that fucked shit up. And then I lost my car in that fire, and I haven't owned a car since. Yeah, I mean, it was a rough time. Yeah, Kat's family lost their home in that fire, and that was why my car is no longer. My car was destroyed because it was parked out front of their house while I was trying to save money for repairs and registration, and I lost the car. And they lost a lot more than even that, and it sucked for us all. And got most of the basics down for this piss water, so it looked pretty terrible, but it was always going to. Ooh, fuck. Yeah. This is kind of Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is one of the piss men. Isn't he? Are you sure? Okay. You might be wrong. It doesn't say he drinks it regularly, but there are a handful of sources that are saying, first of all, that he's drank his own pee, and second of all, that he considers himself somewhat of a pee sommelier, where he's been quoted on Jimmy Kimmel as saying, "A diabetic's urine tastes like wine, cherry wine." So I wouldn't say Dr. Oz is a not piss man, but no! Oh no, this Google search led to bad places. Bad places indeed. Now I'm looking at lists of former models and influencers that sell their own piss. Like, no, in at least one case, ex-Versace model credits youthful looks to drinking his own piss. I added piss. I changed it from urine because I like it. Hope everyone's okay with me saying piss! Yeah, the 55-year-old said he's been able to maintain his model looks and physique thanks to a daily dose of his own pee-pee. The absolute freakazoids on the internet. They should all be ashamed, but they never will be. Oh, this man is horrifying. Okay. I feel like you should have some kind of like funny hairstyle, flat top or something. Yeah, I like flat top. I'm gonna go flat top. Flat top is how you tell a person is American. Hank Hill doesn't have a flat top. He's got curly hair. Right? I don't know. I never really watched a lot of King of the Hill, so I'll take anybody else's perspective. Okay. No, I mean, it's definitely the right shape. It's like the shape of a flat top, but it's, I guess I just don't think of people with curly hair as having flat tops. Whenever I asked my mom for a flat top when I was a kid, she was like, you can't have a flat top, you have curly hair. My mom wasn't being racist. She has curly hair too. She just didn't think it was possible. She's also a licensed beautician, so I think she knew what she was talking about. But I think she was trying me to lower my expectations because she knew what I wanted out of that flat top, and that was to look like a bully out of a 90s movie. And either she didn't want that for me for good reasons, or she didn't want that, or didn't think it was possible because of my hair texture being, you couldn't tell, quite curly. Alright. That's blonde flat top, as good as I'm gonna get it right now. Yeah, it's basically as far as I can go on Twitch. Yeah, good point. I mean, I could draw the hands, I'm just not going to right now. So, I guess deal with that, sucker. Oh boy. Alright, yeah, we're running out of time quick here, folks. Got about a half hour left. Now that I've got the basic layout for this dude, I think I can go back to the background. Start shaping stuff the way I want it. Start giving a little bit of light to those holes I put in the background. Darken up the the background elements. Yeah, no, I'm not spitting on it. I'm blowing on it. It does generate quite a bit of from shock materials. Let's see if I can even get. No, I'd have to get. No, you know what? I can move the camera or the paper, I guess. You'll probably be able to see it if I get it close enough. You see that dark edge? Now it's gone. Yeah. Lots of dust created in this process. A lot of it used, or reused, whatever you might call it, in the process of getting it completed. Incorporating that with blending is definitely something I usually do on these pieces. Where was the rice? Come on. Only problem is it doesn't like to lay down in any kind of structured way, it just does it randomly. Like, just deal with the consequences of it not being perfect most of the time. The redeeming quality is that most of the other colors I can use that I was already going to use help it. I don't like sink in. So like I'm gonna use more of that black that I used on the street in the background. There it is. Outfit. Might have gone a little too hard on that underline there. And enough white. It'll come back. Okay. Oh, they started in my neighborhood now, Sam. What are you even thinking? I know. What the fuck? I would have never when I was a child. You wait till dark, damn it. And it's part of the magic. When it's dark, no one can see you break the rules. Yeah. No, none of us, famously none of us have run from the cops. That is, never happened. I would never. I submit to authority, and you all know that about me. That's why you care. That's why you love me. I love foods. That reminds me of a fun story that I probably shouldn't tell on the internet. I'm just gonna, I won't tell this whole story because I'm pretty sure that, I mean, I'm near positive that there's no amount of, like, recourse that will happen if I tell it. But, also I don't know that, and it could, but I'll just say, I grew up in Reading, and if you don't know, real rednecks run from cops. And so, I may or may have not had to do that a bunch. Real rednecks don't like cops. Real rednecks say fuck the cops. These fake rednecks, these internet rednecks, they're not real rednecks. I am more redneck. You can tell that every one of those fucking betas, every one of your alt-right chat forums. If you're to the right of Dale Earnhardt Jr., you need to rethink your life. That's all I'm saying. Wait, if you think Hank Williams likes the cops, you're a fucking dummy. If you think Johnny fucking Cash likes police, you don't have ears that listen. Okay. I know we're like really close to the end, but I have to run to the bathroom in 15. Please forgive me, I'll be back in just a minute. 5% complete. I don't know how math works. Don't take my word off. Me, you, us, we. Thanks for coming. It's been an interesting 4th of July. I'm glad I got to spend it with you. That's something. Oh, such a perfect day. Yeah. Blue Reed. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Oh, thank you for coming. It's been a really wonderful stream. I really had a lot of fun. The drawings I did today, they got a lot of feeling, and that's what matters. And the friends we made along the way. So yeah, appreciate you for being here. We've got a new episode of Iron Hearts coming out in a couple of weeks, right? Yeah. So we had some technical difficulties. It was going to be out earlier, but we're going to have it in the next couple of weeks. Keep your eyes out for episode 2 of Iron Hearts, featuring me and Ryan the Body Part, my homeboy from way long ago. Actually, everybody in the game is, so I don't know why I specify Ryan. Me and Ryan have been improvising together since we were 14 years old or some shit. I love the guy. It's literally just us. We're the only players in the game. Zach's DMing, obviously, but that was such an interesting episode, especially if you care about Julian Albari, and I very much do. Ryan's character, Julian the Pirate, Captain Julian, if you will, is able to fulfill a long-time character goal. Let's just leave it at that. And I was so happy to be along for the journey. It was such a... I mean, the first 2 sessions of the second season are just like... are some of the kinds of moments in D&D that I love being involved in, where you do the unthinkable, you surpass expectations, you achieve the unachievable, and everything in the process of that is silly and ridiculous and fun. I had so much fun taping that episode with Ryan. I can't wait to have the 3rd one out to you folks much further down the road, probably sometime optimistically late this month, realistically end of August, probably middle of August maybe. So keep your eyes out. We'll have some more episodes coming to you at a much slower clip than our first season. As if you've been here for any length of time, you know a lot has changed since we first started Nerdcrafty. I think with most artistic endeavors like this, you see a loss in funds before you see a increase in funds. So we're all going through it, but if you want to help change that dynamic, visit our Patreon, visit our individual Cash Apps and Ko-fis. We're all, me, Sam, and Zach, are all struggling to keep our feet above, our necks above water. Sam's got a new endeavor I don't think I'm supposed to talk about, but keep your eyes out. We have many talents and abilities to generate revenue with simply less audience than I think is necessary for us to do so. So tell your friends about us, share our VODs that you can find on our YouTube channel, give us a like, give us a subscription. Anything you can do for us is massively appreciated, and we make it worth your while, bucko. Let's see. I'm also in the very early... I know I've been saying this for like a month or more, maybe. But I really want to get a new episode of You Awaken in a Strange Place up. I want to do those more regularly soon. We're adults. It's hard to really schedule stuff like that in a big group. So I'm asking all of you for your patience. Just know that it's something that I'm very passionate about and I genuinely very much want to do soon. It's just much harder than I would like it to be. But that's it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all the shouts out I got for this week, all the plugs that we have. Join me next week. I'm here every Tuesday, 3:30 to 7. I talk about nerdy shit and that's it. I talk about nerdy shit, whether it's politics nerdy shit or it's Master of the Universe nerdy shit. It's just nerdy shit. Just because it's nerdy doesn't mean it's not important to me, goddammit. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. If you're interested in getting the game in of You Awaken in a Strange Place, hit us up at our Disco. Sam's dropping it in the chat. Join the Discord. We have lots of stuff going on in there all the time. You'll find out some of the behind-the-scenes stuff about Nerdcrafty and the way that we work, and you'll get access to announcements and, in the case of my Live with Lava Sub thread, you'll get some of the work that I've finished for the channel. Yeah, as well as all kinds of other access that you can get, and especially potentially being a part of You Awaken in a Strange Place. It's pretty open casting, as long as I don't get a creeper vibe from you before, during, or after the game. You're in, man. So come on, let's play some games. I honestly, I just have a lot of fun running You Awaken. It's very specifically, it feels like it's very specifically built for my ADHD can't do shit type brain, because it allows me to just improvise my way through DMing a game, which is the only way I've found for me to actually do it. So yeah, join our Discord, get in the game You Awaken in a Strange Place with me, maybe even some of our returning guests, like very talented people all around, all of them very, very good performers. Some of them even paid to perform, so get in on it. Other than that, yeah, I'm Weston. You can hire me as an actor, as an artist, as a musician. You can find me at Lava Submersible on Instagram and on TikTok. I am pretty easygoing and don't really worry about, like, I don't know. Not much freaks me out, I guess is what I'm trying to say, so don't be afraid to hit me up. I've been online since forever, so if you just hit me up out of the blue, I'm not going to be like, I'm afraid of a DM! That will never happen. If you're a prick, I will tell you. So don't be a baby if you're going to be a prick to me on the internet, because I will make you and your family sad by how bad I roast you. I have been doing this my whole life. I prefer to defend myself verbally, and I'm pretty good at it. But yeah, my preferred method. Anyway, I hope you all take this day to think about all of the coups and genocides the American government has perpetrated in the name of capital. Think about how your apathy or ignorance about these subjects is something you can easily remedy with a few Google searches and a couple of hours worth of reading. The imperial system must fall eventually. All systems eventually come to a halt, and capital and imperialism is no different. The power is within our hands, comrades. Seize the means of production. And I hope you all are taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other. Good journeys.